Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand-Up Speakeasy. This is part two of my interview with Matt, and uh, we're going to talk about more of his website and what he's done in the past, and we're going to talk to him about the questions I asked about. I asked every comic that I've ever encountered. So with that being said, I'll bring back onto the show Matt. Hey, Matt, how are you, pal?
Hey, how's it going, Sareth? How are you?
Doing quite well. Thanks for being on the show again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. Indeed. So I was looking through your website and I totally spaced out the second page of what we were going to talk about. But I remember that we only had like an hour for our past show, so I'm glad we got to do a part two. So that's thanks for taking time out of your day to do this.
But yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So you won the verified laughs, the weekly competition at the Laugh Factory. What was that feeling like?
Oh yeah, that was like their Halloween show, which is very apropos of recording this, the day before Halloween right now. So that was fun. I was dressed as Freddie Mercury. So I did some stuff about Freddie Mercury in the set, and yeah, it just felt really good to yell into the microphone just right away. I've just gone like, "Hey-oh, and then do that call and response back and forth. I'm like, this is better than any joke I could have done. It's just just pretending to be Freddie Mercury for a couple seconds.
That,
So that made it all worth it for sure.
that's awesome. I saw pictures of your Freddie Mercury, and it was pretty on point on your Instagram. It was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, thanks. That was a good just night of like bouncing around. I mean, if you're gonna pretend to be someone, pretend to be Freddie Mercury. It's gonna make every party so much more enjoyable.
Indeed, most definitely. And you performed at Zanies Rosemont as well. And I'm gonna go in order. What was that memory of like at the Zanies in Rosemont?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit last time. Of just like it's a little bit different for the city versus like the suburbs crowd, and it's kind of a good testing material. Be like, oh, is this stuff going to work out here, or some stuff that works better that you kind of thought was like a little bit weaker stuff maybe in the city, and you're like, oh, this is kind of test your material where it's going to work more, where it's not going to work, and gives you that true feeling of whether your joke is going to be universally accepted or not. And I mean, it's a great club. It was good show, good packed show. It's a good place to get a clip, so that's important. It's always tough to get that good clip. So yeah, it's a good show to do that.
Most definitely. I There's those awesome venues that's great to get a good clip in. There's a place called Rain Dogs in Jacksonville that's like that. It's a cool spot. So when you come
Nice.
down for the winter, hit up Rain Dogs if you get the chance. If it's still open for the comedy. So
Will do for sure.
indeed. So you also performed at Gilder's Laugh Fest in 2020 at Grand Rapids, Michigan. Were they able to pull that off, or was it during quarantine or the pandemic?
Yeah, it was in March, so it was I think like the first week, or maybe it was like 2 weeks. The first week was right before the pandemic, so I got from that first week. I remember some of my buddies were going the second week, and they got canceled. Which, yeah, that's I think all the festivals and everything that was like one of the early ones. So I was glad I got to squeeze that in at least, and yeah, that was super fun show too. Just like a couple shows back to back on a Sunday, and they're still packing them out, which is cool to see.
Indeed, most definitely. And another festival you were on was in 2018 at the IO Chicago's Bentwood Comedy Festival, the stand-up showcase. Any fond memories from that festival?
Oh, that was like mostly improv festival. So I think they had like one stand up showcase through that, and that was like one of the earlier shows or like booked showcases I think I did. So I was super nervous for that, and I think it was like one of the first times I'd done like 10 minutes. So I was freaking out of being like I only done like maybe 6 or 7 minute spots, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna do 10 minutes, like it's gonna be completely different. And of course you survive, or maybe there's a couple a couple hiccups, but I think it went well from what I remember. I mean, IO was super fun hang. I took classes there. That was kind of like the first thing I started on in comedy, was like taking classes at IO, which a lot of people are kind of like, oh, the classes like aren't going to help you be funnier, or like don't take stand up or like improv class, like you'll be good. But I was like, it was good to get that. I was good at like that lesson plan. Like I wanted there to be a curriculum. I was too nervous to just like start going to open mics on my own. So they like help you kind of get over some of that initial stage fright stuff, and just sort of a supportive environment to kind of teach you the ins and outs and like the basics of improv. So it was great to just like, you kind of get over all those initial jitters and all that BS that you kind of have going up on stage to start. And it kind of strips you down and says, okay, like, here's just the basics of stage presence and like how to talk to the back of the room and not to talk too quickly, and like, listen actively when someone's speaking to you on stage, and not just come in with your preloaded stuff from the sidelines or whatever. So it was super helpful, and it was always a great hang at IO. So I was excited to go when I started transitioning more to like stand up than improv. I was excited to go back and do a show there because it's just such a great spot. Not anymore. It's now not in that space, unfortunately, but hopefully something happens with IO.
I hope so too. And some other things you've done at IO when it was open was you were the part of the IO Chicago's improv training program, the IO Chicago's video writing, and IO Chicago's video production. What are some fond memories from those programs and such?
Yeah, so I was talking a little bit about that, the improv training program. So they have, it's like through level 5, and there's 5A and 5B, so it's like 6 levels, and you kind of get something different from each one of those levels. So, I mean, it was an awesome place of like, you're kind of afraid of trying it out, or I was just so afraid of being bad at stand-up or being bad at improv, and like, I don't know if I can do it. That like classroom setting is such a great way to just safely do it in front of like a bunch of people who are also kind of nervous. They're also either like comedy, and it's kind of that cool vibe of like, there's a few people that kind of came together at IO as like comedy nerds, like dipping their toe in the theater realm, and like theater nerds dipping their toe in the comedy realm. So as everyone kind of had their own background coming in, and you could find your tribe of people a little bit more easily. So it was like that thing of being like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this stuff, and like, it's always been in the back of my mind. And then you go into those classes and you're like, oh, there's a whole group of people who also think like I do and want to do this stuff. And I met some, my best friends that I still hang out with to this day. I met in those classes, and have like, some of them started doing stand-up, some of them keep doing improv. But it's a great way to just meet people at the very least.
Indeed. I'm thinking about dipping my toes in theater. Here, I think I told you about I'm producing my one-man show. It's like 2 stories. The first 2 acts are storytelling, and the final act is my stand-up. So it's gonna be
Nice.
90 minutes long, so it should be fun. We'll see what happens.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you are you just in the writing phases right now, or are you testing some of it out?
I memorized my stand-up part, but the first 2 acts I'm gonna go off the cuff and see what happens.
Nice. That's awesome. Maybe take it to like Edinburgh Fringe or something.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll try to get into those Fringe festivals. There's one in Orlando, so hopefully I can get on to that. So it should be rad.
Yeah, that was the other plan. I was trying to go to Edinburgh Fringe this year, and like had the facility booked, and like had the people I was going to go with, and we just needed to find like an apartment there, and like it was all set. And then pandemic hit, and we're like, so hopefully next year.
Indeed, that's the big one, right? Because does Chicago have a Fringe too, or?
I don't know. Minneapolis has a Fringe, I know. So, that's a big one. But yeah, the Edinburgh one's the biggest, comedy festival I think in the world, because it's like a month long, and it shows like, midday through 2 a.m. like every single day. So it's just this, deluge of comedy that gets into the city, and you get so many shows packed in. It sounded like just an insane experience.
Dang. I'll have to look into that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you've also were part of the Blackout Diary at Lincoln Lodge's Under the Gun Theater. What was that like?
Yeah, I did that show a few times, and it's basically this storytelling show that the premise is like comics or like real people, I think at the time, would like come on and just tell real drinking stories, and you kind of like get an interview afterwards and like tell a little bit about their story. People ask questions. So that was like the first time, I think we talked about this last time, that was like the first time I got on stage was that show. And like, I hadn't done an open mic. I hadn't done anything. I just knew I had these drinking stories that might work for this. So I'd seen the show a couple times as an audience member. And, I reached out to Sean Flannery, who was running the show, and I was like, hey, I got this story of, I was drunk in college and running from the cops and got hit by a taxi. I think it might play at your show. And he's like, absolutely, that would. That's a great. Let's try it out. So, I had never been on stage before. Yeah, I told that story, and it was like such a great audience that he has cultivated there. So it's like I'm sure it wasn't as great as I remember, but it just felt insane. And just those storytelling shows are some of my favorite, because you just get to see comics like looser stories or some stuff that you never see them do on their, when you see them around at open mics and stuff. So this is a great one to just see and hang out at anyways. And yeah, being able to do it a couple of times was so much fun. I look back, I'm just like, I had no business being on that show with like some of the people, the heavy hitters that have on it normally, but glad I got to do it at least.
Indeed. I produced one storytelling show called the Confessions of the Corazon. It was at the Corazon Cinema and Cafe. It was inside of an actual movie theater. It was a lot of fun. So Corazon is heart in Spanish, and it was pretty neat.
Nice.
And then I have one now called the Loose Leaf Storytelling Show. So when I get that going again, I'll hopefully have you a guest in Colorado whenever I bring that up. So that's pretty rad.
Nice. Absolutely. Yeah. Were you doing that like a monthly show, or just kind of whenever you were there?
For the Confessions of the Corazon, it was monthly, and we had it for 2 years straight. So that was awesome.
Nice.
And then I only bring Loose Leaf out for Sareth Fest. So it's my music and comedy festival in Colorado. Right. So it's like, I'll just throw a storytelling show and an improv / stand-up show called High and Dry Comedy Show in there too. It's kind of like setlist stand-up without a net kind of thing.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So I just throw that in there. So it's a lot of fun for everyone. I'll send you the video, and it's freaking hilarious. So you can fast forward through some parts. So
nice. Yeah. The storytelling shows are just so much fun. It's a little bit looser. Like the audience, it doesn't have that expectation of being like, oh, I need to like laugh every like 15 seconds or this is a failure. Like there's a little bit less of an expectation and more of like emphasis on like, okay, we're going to maybe have a little bit more of a connection with the performer, or the performers are having a little more connection with the audience. So it's a cool format if it can work. Some of them don't work, some of them do, but when they do, it's just like, yeah, it's just an awesome night.
Indeed, most definitely. I'm horrible at the slams and the topics, so I'm just like, you know what, tell whatever story that you have. There's no theme, just go for it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Sweet. And you've also performed you're voted top video in the StandUp Comedy App. How was that?
Yeah, going through all that, I've like forgotten about. I think that was like I can't remember what that was. Like they were developing this app, and you had kind of each person like uploaded a set to it, and you can kind of vote for who you want. I think like maybe a weekly digest or something, they would have voting on that. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it out. You can win some cash. And ended up getting like voted the top one of the top ones on there, I think. If not, I can't remember what the results were, but I got some money out of it. I was like, all right, hopefully this keeps going. I don't think it did, but maybe.
Indeed, most stuff. And then you also were on Chi-Town's Got Talent. You were a finalist back in 2018. And what was that like? The whole experience?
Yeah, that was one of the. I was like, that's a while, because there's an audition process for that. It was kind of like you go down to this like gymnasium and you audition, and there's just like 3 judges there. There's no audience, and there's people doing all sorts of talent, like singing and like rapping, and then like a couple and I was the only comic I remember at my audition. And I go there, and there's 3 judges just sitting there like staring at their notes. And they're like, all right, next, like come on through, just like barely even looking up. And I did my like 5 minutes, or maybe I did like 2 minutes for the audition, just like straight to them, just nothing, no feedback, no laughter. I'm just like, I don't know if this is good or bad. Do I talk to the judges? Do I talk to the camera? Like which one? And I remember just, eating so much, just like this is just an absolute bomb. And I'm like, okay, well, that was an experience. And then they're like, all right, well, yeah, come down to they called me up later. They're like, come down to the finals. We'll have like a big show at this like college auditorium. And I was like, all right, sweet. There's going to be an audience there, and we're probably not going to be a lot of comedians. So it'll be good to like, if you're the only comedian, it's like all singing. I feel like I'm like, that might be good, right? Because they're tired of jokes. And I was like, these rappers were coming out and they're just like murdering, you know, and it was like in the South Side room in Chicago where it's just like people were like super talented like singers and rappers are coming out and they're like, all right, now the comedian Matt MacLean talking about his white Minnesota bullshit. And I'm like, go up and like just really ate it for like a minute and a half. And then I think I started making just a couple more like self-deprecating jokes. But then I did some like a joke about just impressions where I do an impression of like an iPhone, and that ended up like just getting them, and finally like turned them at the very end. And I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not going to just walk away from this huge auditorium with all these confused looks. And then I remember the judges like afterwards, like a couple were like, yeah, I didn't really know what to make you to start, but you got them at the end, you know, they're cheering for you, so that's good. And then I think the last judge is just like, you know, whatever it is you're doing here, keep doing you. I'm not sure what it is, but just keep doing. Yeah, I'm like, all right, that's not bad. I thought I might have gotten braided, but you know, that was a good review, I think. So yeah, I ended up getting out of there. Didn't win anything from there, thank God. Like that would have been very weird to like go up against legitimate like talented musical artists and be like, no, the comedian should get it, and be like, no.
Yeah. Indeed. I watched your stand-up video and with your iPhone joke, and that third one got me. I didn't expect it. That was so good.
Nice. Thanks, man. Such a silly one.
Indeed. And so these are the questions that I wanted to ask you if I was to go on tour, and but we didn't have time for our last interview. So with that being said, what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was always a fan of it. I was a huge fan of like Jim Gaffigan. I remember in middle school and high school, just like memorize that Obsessed album and just repeat it to my friends over and over, just steal his jokes basically and just repeat them in class. And, you know, it always stayed up like late night with Conan O'Brien. I would watch that like every night with my sister. And so just like loved comedy growing up, but just didn't think of it as any sort of thing that was approachable. Like I just, oh, this is something I love and I consume nonstop all day. And like even when I started working and like either in my like college classes and then working when I was, you know, an engineer, I would just like listen to comedy podcasts, and I would listen to old Love Lines with Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew, and I just listened to like every episode from like 96. They had two or 3 hour episode every single day from 96 to 2004. I just burned through all of them like twice over. Would just listen to them through my whole job, and I'll be like, yeah, there's no way you're interested in this as like as a passion. You're just consuming it obsessively. So I never put two and two together. And yeah, drawing cartoons and all that stuff. Just really liked all things comedy related. And so when I moved to Chicago for a job, I would like go to these comedy shows, and there's something just that pull to just keep going. Even after like my friends would just stop going with me. They're like, we can't keep going. Like, you're going to these all the time. It's like, come on, just go to this open mic in the back of a bar, like 20 minutes north. Like I'll drive, and they feel like, no, like we want to watch sports or something. What do you do? I'm like, all right. So I just go alone, and I'd sit in the back of these open mics, just watching, being like, I could probably do this, right? Like I just kind of slowly that starts building. And then I think, yeah, so it was when I got fired from my job and like my relationship completely blew up, and I was just like feeling at rock bottom of just that. Like, well, I did all the things I thought I was supposed to in life. So what would I actually want to do? And that's that comedy thing kept coming up again, being like, well, you really like comedy, you really like drawing, you really like stand-up, you really like improv, you really like sketch groups. Maybe you should try one of them. And I'm like, okay, that's the deal. And if you get another job, then you got to go on stage. So I got a job, and then that being like, oh, I got to keep that end of the bargain up. So I ended up doing that Blackout Diary show and got on stage. But you just tell a story, go up. If it goes bad, you'd never have to do this again. Check it off the list. You can stop ruminating on it like you've been doing for the last 10 years. And then, you know, it was the best I've ever felt, probably ever. I remember like looking in the mirror being like, yeah, no, this is forever now, for sure. We got to do this. So, you know, that's the worst case scenario. Now I'm like scared to try new things. Do you ever get that? I'm like scared to try new habits where I'm like, what if it's now my favorite thing ever, and I have to like upend my whole life to rearrange to now prioritize that thing and make it like a huge part of it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to try fly fishing. What if I'm obsessed with it? Like I am comedy. Like that would suck. Like this is like taking over my life now.
Indeed. I know the feeling. I went from horror to comedy, and it was just like, what if, I did really bad at comedy, and then sure enough, it wasn't that bad. And comedy is a lonely game, and like I've traveled the world, like the whole state, almost, well, most of the whole state by myself. So it's like, dang, I wish I had a sidekick to go with me. It would have been much more fun. So
I know, and people do it, and it's not impossible. Like I think we think of the story of like comedy has to be this solitary game all the time, but I don't think it has to be. Yeah, it's like people tour together, people tour on or with their significant other. Like it's I think it's just whatever your particular needs are. Like you can kind of carve out a path. That's why I love it. Is there's no particular set path. It's all about like what exactly do you want to do, and then if you want to maybe go on tour with like your whole family. You can do like Jim Gaffigan does like a tour bus with his whole family, and then they go on tour together. It's like, yeah, it's a possibility.
indeed, most definitely. And what was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
Yeah, I think like I was saying, it's just like that just felt better than anything I'd tried previously. It was just like it felt like everything from like engineering and whatever else I'd tried in my 20s of being like, well, this is miles different. I don't know what this is, but something just went off in my head like a Christmas tree lit up. And honestly, I compare it to like experience of like psychedelic drugs too, of like psychotropic chemicals like MDMA or LSD or something, where it's like it kind of will latch onto your serotonin receptors and like make them light up. So it's like I think experience with like a couple of those chemicals earlier where I had that notion of being like, oh, here's what it's like to have like your oxytocin, your serotonin, like your love chemicals and your long-term happiness chemicals like ramped up to 11. And so then when you go reintegrate back into real life, you can be like, let's try some experiences. And if they light up your brain in that same way and that same serotonin impulse, pay attention, because that's the good stuff in life. So I think without having those experiences that kind of like clued me into what my brain was doing, I might have just glossed over it and being like, yeah, I mean, that was a really sweet time, but like drinking also makes my brain feel like that. It's like, well, but this is like a natural thing. Like there's something that you should pay attention to, because everything in your brain in charge of long-term happiness is like latching on and really going into overdrive right now. So let's do some digging deep and figure out how if this is worth pursuing.
Most definitely. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Oh man, I mean, I think the one I like watch the most frequently that like makes me laugh the hardest is Rory Scovel's doing stand-up for the first time is on Netflix. Is so funny. Have you watched that one?
I have. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my god!
At the Relapse Theater.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's so silly and like he's just mind blowing on like a style where I don't even know how to approach it of someone that writes on stage. And I saw him in Chicago when he came to Under the Gun Theater, and he put on 3 shows. So I knew buddies that had gone to each of those 3 shows, and he did a different hour for each one of them and just murdered each one. So he's just going up there and doing kind of like what the audience is giving him. So he's blending in that improv with stand-up, was just like, it's fearless and it's insane that he's doing it that way. But it works out because everything he tells and every joke he does, it just sounds so natural, and you can't. It seems like he is doing it exactly on the spot. It seems like it's fully live every time, even when he's at the point where he's recording a whole album off of it, which is just nuts. Yeah, so I think that special is awesome.
Heck yeah, me too. I the same place was the Relapse Theater, and then I went on tour, and that was one of the spots that I was able to perform at. And
nice.
Yeah, it was like they gave me 6 minutes on that stage, and the show is called Sweet Baby Cheeses, and they were making grilled cheese in the corner, and it was completely packed. Like people were sitting on their butts in the front and standing in the back because there was no more chairs. I'm like, where did all these people come from? And then I filmed it, and I put my audio recording on stage, and so I can sync it in from the ones in the back, and it turned out pretty good. So
nice. That's awesome. Where was that at? Or what? Where's the theater?
The Relapse Theater. It was open, but now it's closed. But yeah,
Okay.
that's where Rory's filmed his Netflix special that we spoke.
Yeah.
So.
Whereabouts is that theater?
I think it's in downtown, somewhere downtown in Atlanta. It looks like a
Okay.
regular house, but I remember there was a
Hmm.
Jimmy John's like nearby, and that's where I had dinner, and then I went and did the show. But
Nice.
I totally spaced out that they made great grilled cheese there too, but they had really good grilled cheese there too.
Nice.
So,
There you go.
yeah. So if you want, I'll send you that performance, and it was pretty wild.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's got to be an awesome feeling.
Heck yeah, dude. And so if you can go Rory's been on Netflix and such, and what are your favorite sitcom sketch shows and comedy films?
Right now I'm going through the Birthday Boys sketch show from IFC. You can get them on like Amazon Prime, and you can like start a free trial of AMC Plus to watch them. So that's what I've been doing right now. It's insane. Like they are so silly. I don't know, it's like 7 of those guys or something, like Mike Mitchell, who's in Love and a couple other things, and the Doughboys podcast. But yeah, it's just wild. That combined with I think you should leave the Tim Robbins sketch show is just are so good. Where I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. You just like break structure of sketch like that. So that's what I've been watching a lot right now. As far as like, sitcoms go, man, I don't know what I've been really liking Comedy Central's Corporate. That's I like burned through. There's like 3 seasons of those out right now. And I'm blanking on the guy's name. But he was on that 7 Minutes in Purgatory. He's like the bald guy in Corporate. I think he's like a UCB guy. But he's such a good actor. He's like everything he says is hilarious. So and Aparna Nancharla's on that. She's great. A few other people too are super good in that Corporate show.
Indian comedy films.
Ooh, comedy films. I think if I'm going by like just most watched and like what made me laugh the hardest, like Superbad came out right when I was a senior in high school, and like my friends and I were moving away from each other, so it's just perfect timing on like that exact humor that we were. It's like we were 18, like they're 18 in that movie of like going away to college. It was just right in our wheelhouse completely, and just like hadn't seen a movie like that before, so it's just watch that just nonstop for the next couple years. Also, like Forgetting Sarah Marshall came out that same time that I just watched. So I loved that movie. And quoted that one all the time too. I think those were up there for sure.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you can go on tour with any comedian locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Oh, locally or internationally? No, I mean, I was going to go on a little mini tour with my buddy Ian Molnar here in Chicago. So we were going to go. I mean, good buddy of mine, and we click really well. We travel well together, so that was going to be fun. I was looking forward to that, but maybe we can do that in the future. Internationally known. I think it's tough of like who would, in the past who I would go on, or like who would be a good tour now versus where they're at in life now. Cause I like, Pete Holmes is like one of the reasons I got into comedy, of like his stand up I started watching in college was just, was totally in my alley. And I just loved his style of like, you could kind of blend this like absurdist version of humor with still being like kind of a nice guy demeanor. Like I like that, his way of doing things, but I don't know. I mean, he's got like a kid now, a wife. I don't know if we'd make great tour partners together. It would still be awesome. But as far as like just going on a great like tour with a comedian right now, I think I'd probably like get along pretty well with like a Kyle Kinane. I think we would have a good time.
Excellent choice. He seems like a cool fella.
Right.
He was talking to Chris Santiago, and he said that he got to open up for Kyle Kinane in Chicago twice, and it's pretty neat because they live in the same suburb.
That's awesome. Yeah, Chris is an awesome guy too.
Indeed, quite the coolest dude. Our interview was like almost 3 hours. It's like the Joe Rogan experience. It was nuts. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And so, if you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Oh man, 5 comedians to get roasted by. I mean, I think I got to go with like my friends here in Chicago, just because they would cut deeper than anyone would probably. I remember doing like a roast show with Tyler Fowler. He had some just great ones. Um, I think he called me the scrawny paper towel man at one of the roasts we were at. He was like wearing a flannel and is like, "You're not. It's not even brawny. It's like the scrawny paper towel man," which I thought was great. Um, I think my buddy Ian would probably have some great roasts. Sam Prickett here in Chicago and Adam Gilbert, and Max Shanker and Brian LaRoe. I think they would all they would all rip me apart pretty good.
Indeed, excellent choices. Those are the best ones. Are your pals who get you roasted? And where do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
I'm trying to just keep doing the thing that feels right next, and trying to keep the process alive of just writing every day and doing the thing that I think is my sense of humor. So just trying to whittle down those sides to get down to your true core. So when you're writing, it's just like, this feels like a authentic version of me. I'm not just I'm trying to cut away all the BS from just your upbringing or your conditioning or the like cultural influences around. So I'm just like, all right, one day at a time. You keep whittling that away, and it's just going to get easier and easier. Everything is going to sound more naturally you, and you're going to have less revisions on like making it. I'll be like, is this even? What did I even like about this? What was the emotionality like that? And it feels like every time I kind of cut down to the core a little bit more, like I get more comfortable with myself. I'm like easier in social situations. So it's almost like this self-improvement tied with writing, where I think the first 10 years of comedy, at least I've heard, and I kind of feel like it's about that, finding your voice. So it's about getting comfortable with yourself and finding out what's different about your sense of humor than other people, and what do you want to bring to the table, and what do you have to say that you're genuinely excited about, or that you're going to want to talk about night after night, instead of like worrying about like, oh, what's the suburb audience going to think, like what's down in like Jacksonville, what are they going to be different, should I just cater to them, instead of just being like, no, this is what I'm going to be excited about every night and what I want to give to the world, or this is what I want to do. So I think it's just kind of cutting away and getting to that piece. So for 5 years, I think it's going to be that process, which sucks to just say out loud, of being like, it's going to take 5 years to even figure out what I want to genuinely say. But it's going to be fun in the process. I'm going to get to do my favorite thing of performing. So I don't think there's really a bad move if you just keep working on that exact process.
Indeed, most definitely. And you've done improv, sketch, comedy writing, acting, directing. Which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into? Like podcasting and there's other forms, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing podcasts like this, and a couple of my buddies have podcasts too. It's super fun every time, so I'd love to get something going in the podcast realm.
Indeed. If you want, I'll send you a referral link to this, because it's easy to do and all that good stuff. So
nice. Yeah, for sure.
Indeed. And let's see here. What is your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Oh man. It's probably like a Mitch Hedberg's jokes that make me laugh just time after time, and I think of every time. I love those like jokes where you see like an object or something in real life, and you only think of the person's joke from then on, like it's forever tied to that object of something. Like, I don't know, there's a couple things. It makes me think of two in particular. Of one of that Rory Scovel special, when he's playing frisbee and someone's throwing it like forehand. He's just like, who's like, easy, no one's getting laid tonight, but like, I'm just the presumption of he's doing this like, hey, what's up? And he's so offended. I butcher remembering like the exact wording of jokes, but he's like, how are ladies not just lining up to blow me for that? But yeah, that one makes me think of that Rory Scovel joke every time I see someone throw a frisbee that way. Every time I walk by an AC unit, like those window AC units that are like sticking outside of a window, it makes me think of Maddie Ryan's got such a funny joke of like there's just no, like, how are we allowed to do that? Like, there's no inspector or anything that comes by. It's just like, yeah, you're going to want to take the heaviest part of that and put that on the outside of the window. And to secure that, just going to want to go ahead and give that sucker a close. That's how you're going to put that in. And there's like a whole chunk on how insane AC units are as a thing we get to do. But every time I pass by one, I think of that joke.
Indeed. My buddies tell me that I have this hostess ding-dong joke that I say on stage. It's a sex position. And they're like, we can't walk past ding-dongs at stores because of you anymore.
Just ruin ding-dongs for someone. That's awesome. That's like the best comedy compliment you can get.
Indeed, most definitely. And the last question for the segment is, what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
I think the best feeling is just when you get to know, you're like, there's a bunch of people that just wanted to escape whatever their shittiness was for a second. They just wanted to get out of their own drama or lies or whatever it is. And you get to see them like laugh for a while. And sometimes they say that to you, just be like, oh, I needed this so bad. And it just felt so good to just come out and laugh or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is it. Like, if you get one of those, you're like, oh, this is everything. Of just knowing that you get to remove someone's pain for a little bit. It's like you feel like a superhero. You're like, this is the best. So if I can like see people or like hear people when they leave and they're like, you get a little hint that they just got an escape and they got to not deal with, because life's fucking hard, So it's like they got to not be in the muck, in the garbage of life for a half hour, an hour, or whatever it was. And then you got to be a part of that, and you got to give that for free. You just with your voice to do. It's like a crazy magic trick. So I think that's the best thing.
Most definitely. And for all those folks watching this in the future or now, feel free to follow Matt on Instagram and Twitter, and scrolling on the bottom, and it's in the description box below, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Donate to his Venmo if you'd like, and visit his website, book him through that way, and donate to at formyblock.org as well if you can. That'd be fantastic. And with that being said, Matt, are there any final words you'd like to give to the audience tonight?
I think that's about it, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a fun part too.
Indeed, most definitely. And I look forward to welcoming you when you come and visit during the snow break there, the winter break. And we'll see if we can help set up some shows for you while you're down here.
I will take you up on that, man. It might be sooner than later with the winter coming.
Absolutely. I'll help you out as much as I can, Matt. Thank you so much for being on the show and all that good stuff. And I look forward to seeing you in the future, I hope.
Sounds good. You too. Thanks, Sareth.
You're welcome anytime, Matt.